Hey guys, wanted to do a video today of actually troubleshooting a gun. We have a beautiful RSX here. I believe this was reserved for the Reservoir Dogs in their custom camo. It's got a leak inside the body. We're going to go over this, tilt the camera down, kind of show you what's up with it, show you how to fix it. I know a lot of people, you see posts about RSXs or stuff from the leaks from the inside of the gun, and a lot of people start swapping O-rings and don't generally know where to look first. So when you air up the gun, probably not going to be able to hear it on the camera, but there's a very, very slight leak. And the way that I am able to check this on an RSX, if you push forward on the trigger and the leak subsides, it's more than likely the O-rings between the QEV and the manifold for the solenoid. So we're going to get in there and take a look at it, go through the whole gun, get it ready for an event this weekend for a player on my team. So I'll show you that. I want to shout out to Joel from PunishersPaintball.com. Thanks for the shirt, dude. If you guys need anything, Punisher sells new, used gear like that. Small shop, support your local store. He's based in Mansfield, Ohio. Joel's a great dude. I'd buy anything from him any day of the week. So let's take a look at this gun down here on the table, and we'll fix this. And that way we have a video to resolve any issues you may have with your RSX. So looking at the gun now, you want to start by taking the grips off the grip frame. Very simple. I got the left side already removed. Remove the right side. You don't have to remove the frame. My apologies for the board from the frame. But I advise doing that so you don't pinch any wires or anything like that. It really helps me out to get the frame off the gun, because you'll have to be working on the inside here. So you remove your grips, set those aside, pop out your battery. I apologize for any sniffling, getting over a cold. Go to the right side of the gun. You'll have your two 1/16 screws here as well as here. Remove those. Set those screws aside. Pull the board up using two fingers away from the OLED display, and then I unplug the solenoid and the eyes. Your board pulls off. At this point now, look at the micro switch for any significant damage. This one has a slight bend to it, but it's not broken. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust this trigger to fix that. Once that's removed, you don't have to remove the bolt kit, but set this aside because we're going to be cleaning that anyways. Time to remove the frame. So removing the two screws on your frame. We're actually going to put a updated XLS latch in this gun as well. So once those are removed, you set these screws aside, and that'll allow you to take the frame off the marker. And now that the board's out of the way, be careful when you remove the frame though, not to yank on the solenoid or eye wires. That'll damage them. Just wiggle your frame loose. Sometimes they'll fight you if they're gummed up or dirty. This one's fairly dirty on the inside, so we are going to clean this thing. So to remove your solenoid and QEV, you have a 1/16 screw up here at the front. That is to hold the QEV in place. Remove that, set it aside. Using the same wrench that you use to take your frame from your body, loosen the rear bolt holding the manifold to the body. Now that'll get loose. On the shockers, you have two clips here. Two clips here that hold the eye wires to the solenoid. Just slide those down and remove them. Remember the orientation of them. The smaller side goes on the front and holds the wires. That side holds the wires. The larger side wraps around the back of the solenoid. So we'll set those aside, fish your eye wires out, and now you have your solenoid and QEV assembly. Now's your chance to get in here. You have your eye wires still in the eye ports. Get in there and clean all that. Let me reach back here and grab a fiber. So use your microfiber and kind of just, clean all that gunk out of there, all that old lube. Make sure everything's clean. I like to look at this point now, all you have inside here, here's your air transfer tube. So your air goes through your ASA, and that's how it gets into the marker from your frame. So I like to check on these. Look at the O-ring for any nicks or dings. Since we're in here, we might as well replace it. So using your pick, get underneath that O-ring and remove it. Once that's removed, get a new one from your set. Now, if you have your stock parts kit, you only have one of these. It's an O-ring that rarely ever fails. No need to replace it all the time. So put your new O-ring on. You don't have to grease this thing, since it's going to be sitting inside a pocket inside the frame. So now you clean off your frame as well, since we're here. And then now we want to look inside the solenoid to QEV. So when you're pressing up on your trigger, it pushes on the manifold here. So your trigger frame is this way. This is how your solenoid mounts inside the marker. You push up on the trigger, it's pushing up here. In between the QEV and the manifold is a 3.5 millimeter O-ring. If that is causing the leak, when you press the trigger up, it'll press against the inside of the QEV body, thus stopping the leak. So that's how you know where to start with that. So you take that apart, clean it up. See, one of the pins for the eyes fall out. So you clean that up, use your pick. Once again on the 3.5 millimeter O-ring. Just give it a wipe down. Main reason you want to keep dirt and debris off of all your parts the best you can. So now that we go back to this kit, we'll be able to grab a 3.5 millimeter Buna O-ring for the manifold. So once you put that on, I put a dab of grease on these just to have a better seal. You don't have to lubricate the inside of the manifold. So that presses back together. I like to make sure that there's a solid fit. If it's super loose, then you have the wrong O-ring. So I also, while we're in here, you have another O-ring on the QEV to the body. This is a 3 millimeter that is pressed into that part of the QEV body. And we'll just use a new 3 millimeter O-ring, since we have a lot of those. And you'll see how it's kind of sitting. You want to push it in and flatten it, and it'll go oval. And it'll sit in its hole. You don't need to force it under a lip or anything like that. It'll stay right where it needs to be. Now the fun part is putting this all back together. The eyes can be a pain to fish and line them back up, especially once they've been removed from the gun. But what I like to do is slightly tighten the rear mounting screw for the manifold to the body. And then I take the eyes. Let's see if we can zoom in on this. Okay, and then you go underneath the front post. There is a locking L-shaped post. Fish your eyes underneath. Make sure when you put these in, you're not riding the edge. I'll show you here in a second. Because if it's overlapping on the edge, it will cause the eyes to get pinched between the frame and body, and thus damaging your eyes. They're not expensive to replace, but if you don't need to replace them, there's no need to buy new ones. So as long as you're careful, you'll save yourself 20 bucks. Once you fish them underneath here, sometimes using your pick to assist, don't use the sharp pointy side of your pick for obvious reasons. You don't want to damage the wires. And then there's a lip right in here that your eyes need to loop through. It's open-faced, So you get all 4 eye wires in, left and right eye wires. You have yellow and white paired and black and red paired for your left and right eye wires. It doesn't matter what orientation they go in. The nicer and neater you can keep them, the easier it is to manipulate them and move them around. So now that you have the eyes fished through, that is when I get the 1/16 screw that came out of the QEV body and thread that back into the QEV. Using my pick, so as I stated here, there's an L-shaped bracket right here. I like to push it all the way over, and then using that pick, push the eyes underneath it while pushing up on the L of the clip, and thus it'll swing underneath underneath the eyes and also barricade it into the body. So you're not going to get them caught in anything. So once you have all those in, then you can go back to your C-clips that I told you about where we removed from the solenoid. So make sure your solenoid is tight. Now at this point, as well as your QEV2 body, fish the eyes in front of the solenoid like so, using your C-clips. Use the short side, wrap them around the eyes like this, and then slide it down over the solenoid. You want to try to capture all 4 wires. Once you do that, they'll be tucked in out of the way. You don't have to use these clips. However, if you don't like floppy eye wires, use the clips. So you have one. I slide one to the top of the solenoid. Still checking to make sure your eye wires are not pinched in the frame there. Using your second clip, do the same thing. I latch this on towards higher up the solenoid. I'll show you the gap here when they're all on there. I rest both clips on the metal portion of the solenoid valve. So you'll have your gap and clips. They don't need to be perfectly straight, they just need to be there. Push the eye wires such to the front if they overlap to the side. All right, and at that point, now, since we have the gun apart, we're gonna replace the latch mechanism. Using a 1/16 Allen key, you remove the 2 set screws from your latch mechanism. This is the old latch for the shockers. It is a black latch. There's the upgrade on the XLS. I'll show you here. These are backwards compatible to the RSXs. The white latch on the XLS is now, let's see if we can get this to focus, is now the standard on the CVO and XLS. It's actually reinforced. There's also no spring anymore because it's no longer needed. These drop right in. Sorry about that. Let's get this to focus. So these drop right back in. Using the same 1/16 grub screws, push the latch forward as you're threading these in. Don't tighten one side over the other. So I like to get one screw in to hold the latch in place. Screw in the other side, and then you can tighten. Make sure they're tightened evenly. Push on the button, make sure the latch works as it should. Once that latch is in there, you're golden. Then you take your eyes, your gun, fish them through here, placing the frame back on the body. Make sure, take a look at your eye wires one last time to make sure they're not pinched in any corners. Slide the frame on. This one, we're gonna have to remove the front grip. So once the frame drops on, Make sure the eyes are not pinching out of the side. Put your frame and body screws back together, such. And to test the gun, you don't need to have the frame and body completely back together. So what we're gonna do is, oh, I apologize, you don't have to have the board back in the frame. So what we're going to do is air up the marker without any electronics in it, seeing if our leak is resolved. And if it is, then we have fixed the body leak. And we'll put the marker together, and it goes back together the way it came apart. And our leak has been resolved. Thanks, guys. That was really quick going over it. We're going to drop all the parts back in the marker, put the board back in, the battery, all that fun stuff, give it a grease, get it ready for an event this weekend down in Nashville for the MSXL. Once again, thanks Joel at Punishers for the shirt. Thanks, guys, for watching. We'll be doing hopefully more videos as more guns come in, kind of fixing them. So if you have any questions or recommendations, let me know, and we'll go from there. Thanks, guys.